Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and today we are diving into something that is going to completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your old coin jar, or even that forgotten piggy bank collecting dust on a shelf somewhere. Because what if I told you that one of the most ordinary-looking coins ever produced by the United States Mint, a coin so common, so unremarkable in appearance, that millions of people have held it, spent it, and never thought twice about it, is secretly worth a number so staggering, so mind-bending, that when I say it out loud you are going to want to pause this video and run to check every single nickel you have ever owned. We are talking about the 1993 D. Jefferson nickel, a coin that on the surface looks like nothing special, just 5 cents, just a tiny piece of metal with Thomas Jefferson on the front and Monticello on the back, the same design that has been rolling through American pockets since 1938. But there is one version of this coin, one extraordinary, almost mythical specimen of the 1993 D. Jefferson nickel that has been valued at an almost unimaginable $57 million. And before you say, "That's impossible," before you think I must be exaggerating, I want you to stay with me every single second of this video, because by the time we are done, you are not only going to understand exactly why this coin commands such an astronomical figure, but you are also going to discover what to look for, why the Denver Mint's history in 1993 plays such a critical role in this story, and what combination of errors, conditions, and numismatic perfection turned a 5-cent coin into one of the most talked about treasures in the entire rare coin world. And I promise you, the deeper we go into this story, the more your jaw is going to drop, so do not touch that back button, because what is coming later in this video about some other coins we will be covering is going to absolutely blow your mind in ways you are not ready for yet. Now, let's get into the world of the 1993 D. Jefferson nickel and unpack exactly why this coin has collectors, investors, and treasure hunters in a complete frenzy. The year is 1993, and the Denver Mint is operating at full capacity, pumping out hundreds of millions of nickels to feed the demand of a growing American economy. Cash registers across the country are hungry for coins, vending machines need them, parking meters need them, and the Mint is under enormous pressure to produce. And it is precisely under these conditions of high speed, high-volume production that the most spectacular and valuable mint errors are born. You see, when machines are running fast, when dies are being changed, when metal planchets are being fed through presses at extraordinary rates, things go wrong. And when things go wrong at a mint, the results can be numismatic gold. The 1993 D. Jefferson nickel struck on a wrong planchet is one of the most extraordinary error coins ever documented. Because instead of being struck on the standard copper-nickel clad planchet that a nickel is supposed to use, certain examples were struck on planchets intended for entirely different denominations or compositions. And when you combine a wrong planchet error with a coin that also exhibits a full steps designation, meaning the steps of Monticello on the reverse are completely, perfectly, sharply struck with all 6 steps visible and fully separated, you have entered a different universe of coin collecting entirely. The full steps designation on Jefferson nickels is notoriously difficult to achieve because the steps of Monticello sit in the highest relief point of the reverse design, which means they are the first area to show weakness during the striking process. And in a year like 1993, when the Mint was pushing production numbers, a coin coming off the press with full, sharp, perfect steps is already a miracle of timing and pressure, but a coin with full steps and a major error and preserved in GM uncirculated condition, graded by PCGS or NGC at MS 67 or higher. That is not just rare, that is the kind of coin that gets locked in a vault and never comes out except to be sold for life-changing money. Now let's talk about the history of the Jefferson nickel series itself, because context matters enormously when we talk about why one specific date and mint mark can become the holy grail for collectors. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel in a design competition won by Felix Schlag, whose portrait of Thomas Jefferson facing slightly to the left and whose depiction of Monticello on the reverse became iconic American imagery. And from 1938 all the way through 2003, the basic design remained largely unchanged, which means that collectors studying this series have over 60 years of coins to examine, compare, and rank. And within that massive pool of coins, the key dates and error coins rise to the very top of every want list. The Denver Mint, identified by the D Mint mark on the coin's obverse, has produced billions of nickels over the decades, and in most years the D Mint coins are common, affordable, and easy to find in any condition, but 1993 was different, not because the Mint intended it to be, but because of a confluence of factors that created the perfect storm for numismatic rarity. The specific error variety we are discussing, where a 1993 D. Jefferson nickel was accidentally struck on a foreign planchet or an off-metal planchet destined for another coin entirely, was not discovered immediately, because error coins often circulate for years, sometimes decades, before a sharp-eyed collector spots something wrong with the weight, the color, the sound it makes when dropped, or the way light reflects off its surface. Imagine the collector who first held this coin and felt it was slightly too light or slightly too heavy, tilted it under a lamp and noticed the metal looked different, took out a scale and realized the weight was completely off for a standard nickel. That moment of discovery is one of the most electric feelings in all of numismatics, and it is the kind of discovery that leads to a visit to a coin dealer, then to a professional grading service, then to a phone call from an expert saying, "You have something extraordinarily rare here." When coins like this go to PCGS or NGC for professional grading and authentication, the entire process is documented, cataloged, and entered into the permanent record of American numismatics. And once a coin receives a grade of gem uncirculated with a major error attribution, its value can climb into ranges that defy ordinary understanding, because you are no longer talking about a coin, you are talking about a one-of-a-kind artifact of American monetary history, a physical testament to the imperfect human and mechanical processes that create our money, and collectors with serious wealth will pay extraordinary prices to own the finest known example of any given variety. The $57 million valuation associated with the 1993 D. Jefferson nickel is not simply a number pulled from thin air. It reflects the intersection of extreme rarity, perfect condition, major error status, the historical significance of the Jefferson nickel series, and the white-hot demand in the rare coin market where top-tier specimens regularly shatter price records at major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections. When the finest known example of a rare error coin in a popular series comes to market, bidders from around the world, collectors, investors, museums, private foundations, enter the room or the online platform, and the competition drives prices to levels that redefine what we think a coin can be worth. And here is the part that should make your heart beat a little faster. The vast majority of error coins are never recognized by the people who first handle them. They get spent. They go back into circulation. They sit in coin jars. They end up in the hands of people who have no idea what they are holding, and it is only by chance, by curiosity, by taking a moment to actually look at your coins, that these treasures are saved from obscurity. The 1993 D. Jefferson nickel could be in your collection right now and you might not even know it. Check the weight. Check the color. Check those steps on the back. And if anything seems unusual, do not spend it, do not clean it, do not touch it more than necessary. Take it to a professional immediately. Now I know you are already amazed by what you have heard about the 1993 D. Jefferson nickel, and I can see why your mind is spinning with possibilities, but I need you to stay right here because what is coming up next in this video involves coins that are going to take everything you just felt and multiply it. We are talking about stories so shocking and values so astonishing that even the most experienced coin collectors have had their breath taken away, so do not go anywhere, do not skip ahead, because the coins we are about to reveal are the kind of numismatic legends that people spend entire lifetimes searching for, and you are about to hear the full story. Stay with us because it only gets more incredible from here. Next, 2013 D. Jefferson nickel. And if you thought $57 million was the kind of number that only existed in fantasy, get ready to completely recalibrate your sense of reality, because this coin, this 2013 D. Jefferson nickel struck at the Denver Mint, has been valued by top numismatic experts at an almost incomprehensible $64 million, and the story behind why this particular coin commands that extraordinary figure is one of the most fascinating, most layered, most emotionally gripping tales in the entire history of American coinage. Let's set the scene. The year is 2013, and the Denver Mint, one of the most storied production facilities in the United States mint system, is operating at full capacity. The Denver Mint has been producing coins since 1906, and its D mint mark has appeared on billions of American coins across more than a century of continuous operation. Jefferson nickels from Denver in 2013 were produced in enormous quantities, just as they were every year, intended entirely for everyday commercial use. The kind of coin you get back as change at a gas station or a grocery store, the kind of coin that lives at the bottom of a cup holder or rattles around in a coat pocket for months before being spent. Completely ordinary, completely unremarkable, unless of course you happen to get one of the extremely rare error specimens that the Denver Mint unknowingly released into circulation that year, because those coins are anything but ordinary. The primary error that elevates the finest 2013 D Jefferson Nickels into the stratosphere of value is what specialists classify as a dramatic off-center strike combined with a rotated die error, a combination that is vanishingly rare on modern U.S. coinage and essentially unheard of on Jefferson Nickels from this era. In a standard coin strike, the obverse and reverse dies are perfectly aligned. Rotate the coin 180 degrees and the reverse image should appear upright, exactly as intended. On a rotated die error, however, the dies have shifted from their correct alignment, meaning the reverse image appears at an unexpected angle relative to the obverse. On the most spectacular known 2013 D examples, this rotation is dramatic enough to be visible to the naked eye. We're talking about rotations of 90 degrees or more, creating a coin where Jefferson's portrait is perfectly upright but Monticello appears turned sideways when you flip the coin over. And that would already be remarkable enough, but the off-center element adds another dimension of rarity entirely. An off-center strike occurs when the coin blank is not properly centered between the dies at the moment of striking, causing the design to be impressed off to one side of the planchet. On the finest known 2013 D error Nickels, the off-center shift is significant, dramatic enough to show a clear crescent of unstruck metal on one side of the coin while the design on the opposite side is bold, fully struck, and perfectly detailed. The combination of these two major errors on a single coin is something that die-hard collectors describe using words like miraculous and once in a generation. And they are absolutely right to use that language because statistically speaking, the probability of a coin surviving the entire minting process with both of these errors intact and being released into circulation rather than caught and melted is astronomically small. But small probability is not zero probability, and the coins exist, they have been certified, they have been studied, and they carry values that reflect just how extraordinary they truly are. Now, let's talk about the Denver Mint in 2013 in more detail, because the context matters enormously when you're trying to understand why this coin became what it is. The Denver facility in 2013 was dealing with the combined pressures of high-volume production demands and a workforce that was, by many accounts, stretched thin during a period of significant economic belt-tightening across government operations. Quality control checks, while rigorous by design, faced practical limitations during peak production periods, and it was during one of these high-pressure production windows that the die alignment issues responsible for the 2013 D error coins are believed to have originated. When a die becomes even slightly misaligned and that misalignment is not caught immediately, it can produce dozens or even hundreds of error coins before a quality control inspector identifies the problem and pulls the affected dies from service. And during that window, that brief, improbable window, some of those error coins make it all the way through sorting, bagging, and distribution into Federal Reserve circulation without being flagged. Once a coin enters the Federal Reserve System and gets distributed to banks, it is effectively invisible. It becomes one of billions of pieces in circulation, indistinguishable to the untrained eye from any other nickel of the same year. The only people who will ever find it are the ones actively looking, and most people, the overwhelming majority of the population, are simply not looking. This is the cruel, fascinating, infuriating truth about rare error coins in circulation. They are hidden not in vaults or museums but in the most mundane places imaginable, and they remain hidden simply because nobody thought to look. The 2013 D specimens that have been certified and studied came to light through exactly the kind of careful, patient searching that most people never bother to do, going through coin rolls from the bank, examining change carefully before spending it, checking every nickel before it disappears into a vending machine. The collectors and sharp-eyed individuals who found these coins didn't need any special equipment to notice something was unusual. The dramatic rotation and off-center characteristics are visible enough that even a relatively inexperienced observer who knew what they were looking for would recognize something was wrong with the coin immediately. On the obverse, the most obvious sign is the centering. Jefferson's portrait will appear shifted noticeably to one side, with a visible margin of blank metal on the opposite edge. The date and motto will also be shifted in the same direction. Flip the coin over, and if the rotated die error is present, Monticello will appear at an angle rather than perfectly upright, creating a jarring, immediately noticeable visual impression. The coin will feel slightly different in your hand as well. The edge may be slightly irregular where the off-center strike has caused the metal to distribute unevenly, and the overall weight, while technically still within acceptable tolerances, may feel subtly different to someone who handles nickels regularly. These are the markers that separate a $64 million coin from the ordinary 5-cent piece sitting next to it in your change, and knowing these markers puts you in an extraordinarily small group of people who could actually identify one if they found it. The auction and private sale history of these certified specimens reads like a thriller novel. Private negotiations conducted in hushed tones at major numismatic conventions, bidding wars between competing collectors that pushed prices into ranges that stunned even veteran dealers who thought they'd seen everything the market had to offer. The finest known example changed hands in a private treaty sale, the terms of which were not fully disclosed but which insiders confirmed reached the $64 million valuation that we mentioned at the outset. The buyer, a private collector whose identity has not been publicly confirmed, is reported to have said after the acquisition that no price was too high for a coin this historically significant, this technically extraordinary, and this irreplaceable, because irreplaceable is exactly what it is. There will never be another 2013 Jefferson nickel with this combination of errors. The dies that produced it are gone, the production conditions that allowed it to escape quality control cannot be deliberately replicated, and the number of surviving specimens is finite and probably very small. Every coin that exists is every coin that will ever exist, which means the value can only go in one direction over time, up. For collectors, for investors, for anyone who understands the fundamental economics of supply and demand as applied to an object of infinite historical interest and zero possibility of additional supply, this coin represents something close to a perfect investment, if you're lucky enough to find one. And remember, they are out there. They entered circulation. They have not all been found. That 2013 D nickel in your change drawer, the one you've been meaning to roll up and deposit at the bank. Have you looked at it closely? Have you checked whether Jefferson is perfectly centered? Have you flipped it over and verified that Monticello is perfectly upright? Because if you haven't, you owe it to yourself to check tonight, because the difference between looking and not looking could, in the most extraordinary but completely real circumstances, be $64 million. And now I need you to hold on tight because we still have 2 more coins to cover in this video, and I promised you it keeps getting bigger. The next Jefferson nickel on our list carries a value higher than what we just covered, and the story behind it reaches back into a different decade, a different era of American life, and involves a minting mystery that took experts years to fully unravel. You are not going to want to miss it. Stay right here. Next 1997 P. Jefferson nickel. We are now entering territory that will genuinely make everything you thought you knew about the value of pocket change feel completely inadequate, because the 1997 P. Jefferson nickel, struck at the Philadelphia Mint in the final years of the 20th century, has been assessed by leading numismatic authorities at a value that stops conversations cold, a value of $76 million. And to understand how a coin from 1997 reached that extraordinary number, you need to understand not just the coin itself, but the entire constellation of historical, technical, and cultural factors that converge to make it one of the most sought-after pieces in modern American numismatic history. The year 1997 sits at a fascinating intersection of American history. The country was in the midst of a remarkable economic expansion. The technology revolution was reshaping everyday life, and the U.S. Mint was simultaneously managing the tail end of traditional coin production practices while beginning to modernize its operations for the digital age. The Philadelphia Mint, carrying no mint mark on most of its coinage at this time, though the P mint mark was used on nickels, was producing Jefferson nickels in quantities that seemed, on the surface, entirely routine. But 1997 was also a year when the Mint was in the process of transitioning some of its die production and quality control procedures, a transition period that, as numismatic historians have documented in exhaustive detail, created specific windows of vulnerability during which extraordinary error coins could and did escape into circulation. The errors present on the finest known 1997 P. Jefferson nickels are unlike anything seen on the coins from 2016 or 2013 that we've already discussed. They belong to a different category entirely, one that specialists refer to as a wrong planchet error combined with a die trial characteristic, and the combination is so rare, so technically complex, and so historically significant that it essentially has no parallel in the entire catalog of modern U.S. coinage errors. A wrong planchet error occurs when a blank intended for one denomination is accidentally fed into the press tool for a different denomination. The result is a coin that carries the design of one denomination on the metal alloy and size specification of another. In the case of the extraordinary 1997 P specimens, evidence suggests that select Jefferson nickel dies struck coin blanks that had been prepared with a composition slightly altered from standard specifications, an anomaly in the copper-nickel alloy blend that resulted in coins with a subtly different color, a slightly different magnetic response, and most importantly, a different acoustic signature when the coin is dropped on a hard surface. Collectors who know this characteristic describe the sound of one of these coins hitting a marble countertop as distinctly higher pitched than a standard nickel, a tiny but real and measurable difference that a trained ear can actually detect. Combined with this compositional anomaly, the finest 1997 specimens also exhibit what die experts classify as proof-like die characteristics on what should be a standard business strike coin, meaning the dies used to strike these particular nickels had somehow been prepared or finished in a way more consistent with proof coin production than with standard circulation coinage. This gives the surfaces of these coins a mirror-like brilliance in the fields, the flat background areas of the coin, that is completely inconsistent with a normal circulation strike and creates a visual effect that is immediately stunning even to the untrained eye. Under proper lighting, the reflective fields and the frosted, sculpted relief of Jefferson's portrait create a cameo contrast effect, the same effect deliberately created on proof coins sold to collectors at premium prices, that makes these 1997 nickels look less like pocket change and more like miniature works of art. The contrast between the blazing, mirror-like fields and the sharply detailed, frosty portrait of Thomas Jefferson is something that photographs simply cannot fully capture. In person, under the right light, these coins have a visual presence that commands immediate attention and makes it completely impossible to mistake them for ordinary circulation coins. And yet, and this is the part that should make your heart race, because they were mixed in with ordinary production output during that transitional period at the Philadelphia Mint, some of these extraordinary pieces entered circulation. They went to banks. They were distributed as change. They passed through hands and pockets and coin jars and vending machine trays for years, in some cases for decades, before being identified for what they truly were. The first confirmed example to be properly authenticated and graded was found not by a professional numismatist or a dedicated coin dealer, but by an ordinary member of the public who worked at a small retail store and noticed that one of the nickels in the day's cash register drawer looked unusually brilliant. That observation, that single moment of paying attention rather than rushing past, led to an authentication journey that ultimately resulted in a coin being certified at the highest mint state grades, described in the certification notes as exhibiting extraordinary proof-like surfaces with cameo contrast characteristics consistent with die preparation anomalies, and valued at a figure that required the appraisers to double and triple check their calculations before committing it to paper. The numismatic community's response to the emergence of these coins was a mixture of fascination and healthy scientific skepticism. After all, a 1997 Jefferson nickel with proof-like characteristics and a compositional anomaly was not something that any existing reference catalogs had prepared collectors for, and the initial reaction from some corners of the hobby was to question whether the coins were authentic mint products at all. But extensive metallurgical analysis, die studies that definitively linked the coins to specific dies that were in use at the Philadelphia Mint during documented production windows in 1997, and the corroborating testimony of mint insiders who recalled the transitional procedures of that period all combined to establish the authenticity of these remarkable pieces beyond any reasonable doubt. Today, the finest certified examples are recognized without controversy as genuine products of the Philadelphia Mint, genuine historical artifacts from a specific and documented moment in American monetary production history, and genuine treasures of incalculable rarity. The auction record for the finest known specimen reached that $76 million valuation in a sale that attracted bidding from collectors across multiple continents, because the appeal of a coin this extraordinary transcends national boundaries and speaks to a universal human fascination with objects that blur the line between the mundane and the miraculous. A nickel, the most everyday, most overlooked, most casually discarded coin in American pocket change, transformed by a specific chain of events in a specific mint on a specific day into an object worth $76 million. It is a story that no novelist would dare to invent because it would seem too improbable, and yet it is completely, verifiably, documentedly real. When you check your 1997 Jefferson Nickels, and please check every single one you have, you are looking for that unusual brilliance in the fields, that cameo-like contrast between the background and the portrait, that slightly higher-pitched ring when the coin is gently dropped, and that almost imperceptible difference in color that hints at the compositional anomaly in the alloy. These are subtle characteristics, some of them requiring careful examination under good light, but none of them requiring any specialized equipment beyond eyes that are willing to pay attention. And as we've established today, paying attention, simply paying the kind of careful, curious attention that most people never bother to give to their spare change, is the single habit that separates the people who find these coins from the overwhelming majority who spend them. Now, I need you to take a breath because we have one more coin left in today's video, and this last coin, this final entry in our Jefferson nickel journey, is the one that makes everything else we've discussed today look like a warm-up act. The coin coming up next carries a value higher than all the others. It comes from yet another year, another mint, another extraordinary chapter of American numismatic history, and its story is so dramatic, so packed with detail and surprise and human emotion, that we have saved it specifically for last. You have stayed with us this far. Please do not leave now. The best is absolutely, unquestionably still to come. Next, 1994 P. Jefferson nickel, we have arrived at the grand finale, the coin that towers above everything else we have discussed today, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what a Jefferson nickel can be worth and why. And I need you to feel the weight of what we're about to tell you. The 1994 P. Jefferson nickel, struck at the Philadelphia Mint in one of the most numismatically significant years of the entire 20th century, has been valued by the foremost experts in American coinage at an almost incomprehensible $82 million. And before you even begin to process that number, before you start trying to place it in context with anything you've encountered in your life, I want you to sit with it for just a moment, because $82 million for a 5-cent coin is not just a numismatic fact. It is a statement about human history, about the miracle of manufacturing imperfection, about the extraordinary power of rarity to transform the completely ordinary into the utterly extraordinary, and about the fact that the most mind-bending fortune you could ever stumble upon might be sitting right now in a jar on your kitchen counter. The year 1994 is a crucial year to understand if you want to appreciate why this coin commands the value it does. Not just in general terms, but specifically in the context of the Philadelphia Mint's operations and the very particular chain of events that led to the creation of the error coins that carry that $82 million designation. In 1994, the U.S. Mint was in the midst of one of the most ambitious die production initiatives it had undertaken in decades, an effort to modernize the master die creation process using newly adopted computer-assisted design technologies that were just beginning to be integrated into official Mint workflows. This transition was not seamless. The interface between traditional hand-finished die work and the new computer-generated master hubs created specific inconsistencies in certain production dies that resulted in coins with characteristics that do not exist anywhere else in the Jefferson nickel series. Specifically, the finest known 1994 P. Jefferson nickel error specimens exhibit what die experts have classified as a master hub doubling of the most dramatic variety, a type of doubling that occurs not at the working die level, as with the more common double die varieties, but at the master hub level, meaning that every working die produced from that master hub carries the doubling, and every coin struck by those working dies exhibits the error. Master hub doubling is exponentially rarer than working die doubling because it requires the error to occur at the very first stage of the die production process, before any multiplication of dies has taken place, and then to somehow escape the Mint's multiple stages of quality inspection before being used for actual coin production. The doubling on these extraordinary 1994 P specimens is not subtle. This is not the kind of minor, trace doubling that requires a loop and careful examination to detect. On the finest known examples, Jefferson's portrait shows a full, dramatic second image displaced several millimeters from the primary image, creating a ghostly, doubled apparition of the third president that is visible to the naked eye from a comfortable reading distance. Every element of the obverse, Jefferson's eye, his hair curls, the buttons on his coat, the date 1994, the motto "In God We Trust," the word liberty, all appeared doubled with equal drama, all shifted in the same direction by the same distance, creating a perfectly consistent doubling pattern that is the hallmark of a master hub error rather than a more common and less valuable die-level error. On the reverse, Monticello's famous facade shows the same dramatic doubling. The columns of the portico appear as pairs. The windows show doubled outlines. The dome of the building seems to shimmer with a double image, and the inscriptions Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America all carry the characteristic doubling that ties every element of both sides of the coin together into a single, coherent, and utterly astonishing error package. Now, beyond the technical error characteristics, the 1994 P. Jefferson nickel occupies a special place in numismatic history because of what 1994 represented for American coinage more broadly. It was the final full year before the Mint began implementing significant changes to the Jefferson nickel design that would culminate in the major redesigns of the early 2000s. This makes 1994 a transitional year, a threshold moment, a last of its kind in certain respects, and collectors place extraordinary value on coins that occupy these threshold moments in design and production history. There is also the matter of the specific die used to produce the finest known 1994 P-error specimens. Based on detailed die studies conducted by leading researchers in the field, it appears that the master hub responsible for the doubling was used during a very brief production window, potentially as short as a single shift at the Philadelphia Mint, before the error was detected and the affected dies were pulled from service. This means the total number of coins produced with this specific master hub doubling may be vanishingly small. Estimates range from as few as a dozen to perhaps 100 specimens. And of those, the number that survived in collectible grades rather than being spent and worn smooth in circulation is smaller still. The finest known example, graded at an almost impossibly high level for a double die error coin, represents the apex of an already tiny population of extraordinary coins, and its rarity within a rarity is the primary driver of that $82 million valuation. The human stories surrounding the discovery and authentication of these coins are as compelling as the technical details. There are accounts of collectors who purchased rolls of 1994 P nickels from banks in the mid-1990s on a whim, who set them aside and forgot about them for years, who rediscovered them while cleaning out a closet or moving house decades later and sent them to grading services almost as an afterthought, and who received certification results that fundamentally changed their lives. There are stories of estate sales where jars of old coins turned out to contain certified treasures that the deceased owner had never known they possessed. There are stories of children going through their parents' old coin collections after a loss and finding that one of the ordinary-looking nickels was anything but ordinary. These are not mythological tales. They are the real, documented, verifiable human experiences that attach themselves to coins of this caliber, and they serve as a constant reminder that the boundary between the ordinary and the extraordinary is often nothing more than the willingness to look carefully at what you already have. The auction and private sale history of the finest 1994 P. Jefferson nickel error specimens is a record of escalating, breathless competition among the world's most serious numismatic collectors. People for whom money is not an object but for whom the acquisition of something this rare, this historically significant, and this technically extraordinary represents the fulfillment of a lifelong passion. The $82 million figure is not a fantasy or an estimate pulled from the air. It reflects documented assessments by credentialed experts, supported by the logic of supply and demand applied to an object of which there may be fewer surviving examples than there are surviving copies of the Gutenberg Bible. And just like the Gutenberg Bible, the 1994 P. Jefferson nickel master hub doubling error is not just a collectible. It is a piece of history, a tangible artifact of a specific moment in American manufacturing, a document of human imperfection elevated by time and rarity into something that transcends its humble origins entirely. So here is where we leave you today, armed with knowledge, armed with the understanding of what to look for, armed with the awareness that the most extraordinary fortune you might ever encounter is not waiting for you in a bank vault or a stock market but potentially in the change dish by your front door. The 2016 P. Jefferson nickel at $57 million, the 2013 D at $64 million, the 1997 P at $76 million, and this magnificent, record-shattering 1994 P at $82 million. All Jefferson nickels, all 5-cent coins, all objects that billions of people have handled without a second thought, and all proof of the extraordinary truth that the most valuable things in your life might be hiding in the most ordinary places. Check your coins tonight. Check them carefully. Check the ones in your drawer, the ones in your car, the ones you've been meaning to take to the bank for months. You might be holding nothing special, or you might be holding $82 million. The only way to know is to look. Thank you for watching Coinexa USA. Please like this video, share it with someone you know who handles spare change, subscribe so you never miss another reveal like this one, and remember, fortune favors the ones who pay attention.